Glass allows us to see in and out and invites us to imagine. Imagine Museum, Contemporary Glass Art.
Hello, I'm Jane Buckman. I'm the Executive Director of Imagine Museum. I'm so happy to be with you all today with another of our monthly I Am Exchange. And this is where we actually reach out to people, all of the artists in our collection, our collectors. And for this Zoom, we are doing a new programmatic thing for the museum, and we're calling it the Glass Coast Studio Encounters. And the purpose of this is in celebration of the 2022 United Nations International Year of Glass, that we decided we wanted to bring all of the studios together that are here in the St. Pete area or in this Gulf Coast area, and what makes it so special and why do we call it the Glass Coast. So our first encounter, and I might say our first, I don't want to say guinea pigs or anything, but you're the first. So we're going to take you through, and how fortunate for me, because I have people I actually talk to, if not daily, weekly. And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce Trish Duggan. As many of you know, is the founder of Imagine Museum, but is also an artist in her own right. As many of you who have been through the museum, you know by the many installations that you see inside of the museum. I also have with Trish is Faye and Sky McDonagh. We call her Sky, but it's a beautiful name to say the whole thing all the way through. And Sky is an artist herself. She's a graduate of RIT, and she's also the manager of TD Glass. So let's get going on this, because I'm sure everybody is interested to learn more about the studio that the artist Trish Duggan works out of. So Trish, talk a little bit about TD. How long have you had it?
Well, we started in 2016. After spending a lifetime in the investment business and raising 8 children, I decided to get back to my roots, which was art. And I have a fabulous, very professional team who's here, including Sky, who's really been phenomenally helpful in glass, and also Doug Gialoca, who helps me with metalworking and the stands that we have, and all sorts of other things like pouring glass. And then we have Larry Bissalon, who works with wood, and he's also a car buff. So I purchased 3 Corvettes, and we're making glass engines and glass interiors, glass tail lights. And so we're doing some fun things. And then Casey Brewster, who's in charge of my studio, and her mom, Sam Brewster, who helps me with etching and all sorts of different things. Casey has really been a phenomenal help too. So, but I have a fabulous, fabulous team who helps me.
So what made you say, okay, 2016, this is the time for me to have my own studio and get back to those roots?
Okay, that's a long story. I could talk for an hour on that. As a lot of people know, I had a phenomenal art teacher. He was Japanese. When I was 16, he taught me to work with Japanese paper, and he taught me how to do woodblock prints. In fact, I'm going to share this. This is my first. Can you see that? That's the first print I ever did. That was when I was 16. So
fantastic.
He was incredible because he did nothing but validate the students. In fact, I was so enamored with him. I told my mom all about him and how validating he was, and she wrote it up, and he became teacher of the year and ended up leaving the high school and teaching at a junior college. And I still am in communication with him. He wrote me just a beautiful, beautiful letter recently, and he's in his 90s. And I just really, I want to tell everybody that you never know how one person can completely change your life. You may not think that when you're 16, but then, you know, here I have Imagine Museum, and I've done thousands of woodblock prints, and I've progressed, by the way, from this little bird. I'm going to share one of my recent wood blocks.
Okay, great.
So this is a more recent wood block.
Oh,
And I have many, many of these, and I store them. They're art in themselves as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to share, he taught me to work with Japanese paper. So I'm going to share something with you.
Do you need help?
I'm good.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
the
they can
artist.
feel- Let me put it up a
So
little bit.
this is Japanese paper, and I have 2 cranes and a moon on this. And I do 4 different colors with every wood block that I do. I do teal on black, gold on black, silver on black, and blue on white. And for those of you who don't know about wood block prints, the Japanese produce millions of these, and some are as expensive as, you know, over the hundreds of thousands just for one print. So this is Mount.
We had many of them. Some of our members that are on this Zoom might remember some of the Japanese prints that we had in the museum.
This is
Yeah.
Mount Fuji and the reflection. And just so you know, I climbed Mount Fuji. I wanted to get a different perspective, so I went up there. In my 60s, I climbed to the top. And then
And yeah,
this, I studied a woodblock print at Nanzan University. And this is my first print that I made in Japan when I was in Japan. I had a really fabulous teacher in Japan.
fantastic, fantastic.
I had
You know,
studied
we have
printmaking at UCSB, and if you were really good, your teacher at the end of the year kept one print, and he kept mine, and he told me I could be famous. And then he said, actually, this year I kept another print, and so everybody was like, "Oh, is it mine? Is it mine?" And it was mine. He kept 2 of my prints that year, so I felt very validated. The thing that I do that's different is that I take that wood block and I press it into sand, ground up olivine.
Yes, and I do think we have some video that's going to show a few of those, but let's first show the video with your Japanese teacher and the wood block prints. So,
Okay, great.
so that was your teacher, that picture of you when you saw him last, right? Or saw him in the last couple of years.
That's right, yeah.
Yes, yes.
So the thing is, I got interested in glass because I went over to John Travolta's house and I saw this spectacular small glass sculpture. And I actually flipped out. I said, this thing looks alive when the light is on it. And who did this? And he said, Marlena Rose. And so I ended up contacting her. He gave me her phone number and I became her largest collector. And so then she said, would you like to see how it's made? Because I had no idea about glass, but I knew I loved it. It was gorgeous.
Yes.
To me, it comes alive. So I went to Chuck Book's Sigma studio and he had Duncan McClellan work with him and then Marlena Rose work with him in his studio. And he's very supportive. I would put him on the same par as Mr. Nakamura. Chuck Books has been one of the supporters of glass in this whole community.
Yes.
So I watched and I fell in love. I was just like enamored, amazed,
Yes.
hooked. And I said, could I make something? And she said, okay, well, pick something out that you want to make and bring it in. And I did. And it was, whoa, when it came out, it was like, oh. So I decided I'm going to work up the nerve to ask Chuck if I could work in his studio. Chuck was so gracious and so kind. In fact, he gave me one compliment after making quite a number of things. He said, you open a portal to serenity that I have never seen.
Yes.
And I'll never forget that. It was one of the kindest and most supportive and validating group of words that I've ever had in my life. It was, you know, he changes people's lives with his graciousness and his support. So
Yes. Well, and you had the opportunity to work with Marlena Rose, who people know. We have her work in our collection, and we have currently on display as well. And so what was when you started really working with the furnaces and the hot glass, the hotness, you didn't, some people say Sky, you could say this too. Oh my gosh, that's so hot. I can't do that. What made you lean in to make that happen?
Well, it was a fascinating substance to work with. And I had always been interested in the human mind. We have human bodies and we're temperature sensitive. It's like a 98.6 degree carbon oxygen machine, and we have to have so much oxygen, and we can't have too much heat. We can't have too much cold. We have to feed ourselves on these dead carcasses, and unless you're a vegetarian. I mean, it's strange. Our sight is limited it's very narrow limit between infrared and ultraviolet. And we feel with our fingers. So we've got this nice calling card, but it's rather fragile and can decompose. But so we've got this nice calling card and to work with that substance that can be so cold and so hot was completely fascinating to me. I have to say I was a bit exterior to the whole process, but I did wear, Marlena had me wear the mask with the filters, and then I wore a fireman's mask to keep the heat off. And but just working with the material alone, to me, is an amazing, amazing thing. And as sculpture, it's an American art. The Italians, they made glasses and plates and all sorts of vases and things, but the Americans were the ones that really went into making the wild things. And I've had the opportunity to make a 350-pound piece of glass. And it's a fascinating and amazing medium. And I feel one of my goals is to help make all the American artists famous for their sculpture, to really move glass into an ultra contemporary art form. And that's why I started Imagine Museum.
Yes, and as any of the people on this Zoom who have been through the museum, you do know the incredible collection that has been assembled and that we show people daily, Tuesday through Sunday, where you really can come and experience this glass and all the various techniques that artists use to be able to capture and communicate what it is that they're interested in. And Sky, I'm just going to ask you, how did you come to be the manager of TD?
It's not a really long story. I started out with glass in flame working. I worked at a studio in Melbourne called Mickelson Studios. And one of the other people in that studio is Dave Walker, who now owns Zen Glass Studio here. So for a long time, I lived in other places in other parts of the state, and I would travel to St. Pete to make my glass at Zen or work with local artists here. And one of those times I met Chuck Books, and the next thing I know, I get to meet Trish, and one thing led to another, and now I'm making glass with Trish.
So, and so how many years have you been working with Trish now, Sky?
3
years. So in that time, just talking a little bit about the output of TD glass, how many pieces would you say that have gone through the studio during that time?
Wow, probably 2,000, maybe more.
My kids call me hyper productive.
Yeah, we make a lot of pieces, large, small. I would say around 2,000 since I've been here.
Yeah, yeah. It's Trish, you work a lot in series and in multiples. And I think that's something that's signature to what it is and your expression. So we are moving forward as we talk about Trish as the artist and what's going on at the studio. I do want to remind everybody that on Thursday, March 31st, from 2 to 4 p.m., we'll be opening the doors to TD Glass to take our members and friends through on a guided tour with a casting demo. And so what will they find when they take part in that tour?
Will I answer this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we'll show this video first
Oh,
of
it looks
process.
like the video is coming. Okay.
There you go. So talk a little bit about the tour and then we'll get back into talking about the art.
Okay, I'll mention first that we are going to let people tour the woodblock room, and I have hundreds of woodblocks, and this is what I use. This is what is used in Japan to carve woodblocks. They have a whole set of tools, and that's what I used to use when I was in Japan. And then I make the print, for example, like this print is it's just been made recently, or this print, or this.
I think they'll love the woodblock.
Oh, let me hold that one and you can show the glass.
To walk in there and to see the variety of all the woodblocks, they are art pieces in and of themselves. Oh, look at that.
Thank you. And we have two ways that we use the wood blocks. I think I'm the only person that uses wood blocks with glass. I press that block into the ground up olivine, which is a semi-precious stone, and it keeps a really nice duplicate or recording of the print. And then we have another way that Sky is going to actually, on Friday, the 1st of April, we're going to allow people to come in and make a piece of glass. So if they can think up something to make, we will let them make things. But anyway, the prints, I use this roller and I use acrylic ink. There's another roller. And then I have a tool from Japan that's made out of bamboo that I can rub on the print before I take the paper off. And I have a fine collection of Japanese paper that people are going to be able to see. This is like a sample of, it's handmade Japanese paper, and you go to certain places in Japan, and I actually found some place in San Francisco that sells the same paper. So I go to Japan once a year. I speak Japanese, and I didn't go during the pandemic, so I'm a little bit behind on my paper. But but I really enjoy. I've been touched by Japan, and I just want to mention, you know, my dad was in the war, my grandfather was in the war, and it's fascinating how we've become allies with the Japanese now. It's absolutely fascinating to me that we can have so much hatred, you know, in war, and then years later, the next generation totally changes, has a completely different viewpoint. So I'm grateful for the Japanese culture because they've really emphasized beauty. And there's one artist, and I can't remember who it was, but he said there's so much ugliness out there in the world. We need to actually, in art, we need to focus on beauty. And I believe that the purpose of artists is to lead people into the future and to lead people upwards, not downwards. That's my viewpoint, to really uplift people with art. That can be done.
I think that that is obvious in the work that you produce, Trish. And I'm sitting here in the Grand Hall right now, and we're working on the Human Rights Wall, a collaboration that you did with Bertil Dahlin from Sweden. So I know, Sky, it was you were already over here, and then you ran back to TD to do
Yeah.
the Zoom, and then you'll move this way over again to
Then
do
I'll
the.
be right back.
But talk a little bit about those collaborations that you have with other artists, Trish, and particularly what was the impetus behind the Human Rights Wall that we're putting up today?
Well, Bertil Dahlin is, I consider him to be the #1 cast glass artist in the world, and I consider myself wildly fortunate to have ever been able to do some collaborations with him. He's an outstanding artist, just outstanding. And I'd been working in the field of human rights for many years. I worked with different governors and also deputies in Mexico, trying to get human rights taught in the schools there. I've worked with Oscar Arias Sanchez, the Nobel Peace Prize winner in Costa Rica, and he's been president twice, and his lovely wife, Suzanne, who's been a human rights lawyer and a real advocate of human rights. I think we need to teach everyone that they are born free and equal. We all have an equal opportunity, especially to create. Think about it. You can lose everything, but if you don't lose your ability to create, you can still create something. And if you can't create a lot, create a little. And teach your kids to create, because creativity is so important. Even Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge. So we need to keep creating. And I decided to teach human rights through art as well. And hopefully this will spread. I have an idea to contact all the different countries and have them do one little piece of fused glass, one vase that says love, because guess what? Love does solve a lot of our Homo sapiens problems. And when we hate, it contracts our space. And when we love, it opens up our space. And that's what we need to do as Homo sapiens. So I was so excited when Bertil said that he would do this human rights collaboration. And we've got his piece up, and it is so spectacular. You have to come to Imagine Museum to see it, because it's very moving.
It is very moving. So let's talk a little bit about, I think that people really have a sense of you, Trish, when they walk through the museum. And the 3 words that we use are the inspire, uplift, and educate. So that is what motivates us as we curate the galleries, as we select the works that go into the galleries. But talk a little bit, and I know that that is your point of view. So how do you move that into your work? What is your creative process, and how do you take the concepts and those ideas and then have them become manifested?
Well, you know, for example, on the human rights, I've given hundreds of lectures on human rights. I've lectured in Mexico and Costa Rica. We're working in Venezuela, El Salvador, Colombia, Venezuela. We're working in many, many different places trying to teach human rights to people. So then I thought, let's do something in art. And I started looking up quotes. You can ask Siri quotes on human rights, and it's pretty fascinating. You know, it's a very uplifting and expansive area in my life that has become so important. So then I get the idea, okay, what can I do about human rights, and who are some people that really worked on human rights? And I was able to do a collaborative sculpture with Martin Blank, which is also now in the museum. It has people that in the stream of humanity have really made a beautiful impact on our lives. People such as Gandhi or Mother Teresa or even Mother Mary. And and Buddha. I've put these together with a collaboration with Martin Blank, and it's just something to help educate people and to help inspire them. But I have 2 huge file boxes full of ideas that I'd like, I could live to 120 easily just to get everything done.
And Sky, are you up for all of that?
Oh, wow. Yes, I am. It's my job to take the imagination and magic and make it into the concrete objects.
And we're even doing a piece together, which is, I probably have 200 scarlet macaw feathers, and they're like many colors, like they're red, blue, turquoise, yellow. And as the feather turns, it'll have 3 or 4 different colors. They're spectacular. And you know, most people know I still go surfing in Costa Rica, and I love that country. It's so beautiful, the surroundings, the birds, the plants, the animals. It's a fabulous place. So Sky has helped stitch each of the feathers. I keep bringing feathers in, and
Yeah. My side job.
and putting them in glass tubes. And we're going to create a fabulous collaborative installation with those.
Yay.
So talk a little bit about those collaborations, Trish, because how do you inspire the collaborations? How does that come about? And I say this because on the backside, I know the artists when they come and install, and I know the impact that the collaboration has on them. So when you're thinking about collaborations with different artists around the world, and these days it is around the world, isn't it? And right at home with Sky. So how perfect is that? But what is your motivation behind all of these collaborations? What is it that you would like to see accomplished with them? And with bringing yourself into those collaborations?
Thank you. I've had a tremendous amount of support from Corey Hampson of Hampson Gallery. He's helped me put the whole collection together in the museum, and he's introduced me to a lot of these different artists. And you know, an artist can say, no, I'm not interested in doing a collaboration. But honestly, when you really communicate heart to heart with these artists, like I have done several artists, one was quitting and not going to do anything else, and I put on a whole show for him at the museum, and another one was giving up. I've worked with artists who are in their late 80s and 90s, and Yaroslava Briktova was one. And you know, she's in a wheelchair, and most people just talk to her son or her daughter. And I just looked her right in the eye and started communicating with her and telling her what an honor it was to meet somebody so phenomenal. She did the iconic green eye of the pyramid, which is in the Corning Museum. And I asked her if she would do something with me after really communicating for quite a while. And we got this on video. I told her, I love you. And she looked me right in the eye and said, I love you. And love is such a fabulous, love and communication and understanding, those dissolve all the ridges, all the hatred, all the anger. And she allowed me to do a blue eye of the pyramid and she gave me 4 choices of blues. And, you know, most unfortunately, she passed away several months ago, but I was so grateful to know such an artist. I'm grateful to know all the artists I've worked with. I mean, my heart is just connected to these people, and I get ideas of what I'd like to show, and I talk with them, and I give them different quotes to inspire them. And, you know, I really want to bring art to life. I want to bring these artists to life. And I feel like I've done that, and then sharing it with the world instead of just having it in their own little space in their own country. We have such an international mix of people who visit Florida. Seems that we're like really the pinpoint of freedom on the planet right now. So we have people, more and more people are visiting. And so I like to share these artists' work with the world.
Well, I think that you are doing that. And I also think that the artists that do collaborate with you, I believe they walk away with something gained also by the interaction that they have with you. I think that once that they confront truly what your motives are about inspiring and uplifting and love and human rights, I think who cannot want to collaborate and make those statements, those broader statements to the world, and you know, especially these days and what's going on. So That's why I also will encourage our audience, after today, this human rights wall will be complete. And I encourage you to come and confront it, because I also think that you will be uplifted and also inspired. So talk about some of those other projects that you mentioned so briefly as earlier in our conversation. And I've asked you a couple of times, so what are the projects that are currently in place? And what I'm most interested to hear from you, Trish, because now I have this, this Zoom communication, what is it that you're thinking of? You have that box of ideas. So what's next? What is it that you aspire to with your art and your art making?
Well, you know, I have done the Buddha wall with that quote, though you can conquer 1,000 men in battle 1,000 times, the one who conquers himself is the noblest victor of all. So you want to conquer your reactivity, your hatred, your prejudice. So that was the point of that. Then I've done a Kuan Yin, a goddess of compassion, that we have not put up. I've done 1,000 of those. So those will be up next in the museum at some positive future date. And what I'm trying to show is that most Homo sapiens believe in scarcity, but scarcity is something that's fostered on people. Scarcity is not real. Go out and look at the sky, look at the clouds, look at the grass, look at the sand. There's no scarcity of sand, no scarcity of grass. There's no scarcity of clouds or blue sky or stars in the sky. That really, we need to create a viewpoint of abundance and then experience and be grateful for that abundance. So that's why I do the series of 1,000 pieces, because honestly, I don't believe there is any scarcity, and I believe that it's a state of mind. In fact, my viewpoint is that everything is a state of mind. The way you look at something is a state of mind. You can look at things as disasters, or you can look at things as, you know, death or awakening, you know. So it's important for us to look at the positive in life. And I believe truly that that's the purpose of artists. Is, you know, a culture is only great as its dreams, and its dreams are dreamed by artists. So let's put wonderful dreams out there for others to see. Let's uplift others as artists. Let's create a new renaissance out of the ashes of what's going on right now. And I've probably done at least 10 phoenix birds, because I do definitely believe that out of the worst of situations, I lost a son and I ended up adopting 5 more boys. So out of the worst of situations, we don't have to sink and stay in that situation. We need to change. We need to choose to change. We need to choose to have a positive mindset. And that's what I hope to show in my art.
I think that you do. I watch the people go through the museum, and as you know, the Buddha Wall is one of the most popular galleries that we have in the museum. And I think that people just like to go in there and to take that moment to reflect. And I think to take that moment to also be uplifted. And so what are some of the other things that you are, that you're working on the studio, that inside the studio that actually reflect what it is that you're just talking about right now?
Okay, I'll mention 2 things, by the way. I want to mention the collaboration that I've done with Gottfried Helvine. You know, he does very controversial art, and I talked him into doing just beautiful women in art in blue. And then I was able to get a copy, the Vatican okayed a copy of the face of Mother Mary from the Pieta to be made in gold, silver, and bronze. And someone had made a mold of that. I was able to purchase that off the internet. And so I have a whole room that's an homage to mothers called the Blue Madonna. And I encourage everyone to look at that. I had the experience of a woman who, I came in there, she was crying her eyes out, and she goes, I said, oh, what's happening? She goes, my mother just passed away. And this is such a beautiful exhibit. So, you know, for all the moms that raised kids to be artists, for all the moms who raised kids to be scientists, for all the moms who have raised kids, I just wanted to really validate all the moms on this planet that have, you know, raised children. And the other thing I'm really working on is Optical Illusions. And so I have a whole series of optical illusions. In fact, our rooms 8 feet high and 8 feet deep that are optical illusions. I have one that has cubes all over the back, boxes. And the purpose of this exhibition is for people to look, and they can look in. I have dollar bills pasted to all these rectangles in the box, and they can look down and see dollar bills forever. And I have a mannequin that has dollar bills pasted all over her, and I really will encourage people to come see that. But that's not in the museum yet. But the thing is, I would like people to think outside of the box. More than that, I would like people to think there is no box. All the barriers you put up are barriers that you've put up. Your mind is full of barriers. Why can't I talk to this girl because this? Or why can't I talk to that man because of this? We have so many barriers in our mind. And I also am trying to show that all of life is not just about money. And this woman is very sexy with the dollar bills. It's not just about money, money and sex. That's the material viewpoint. What I'm trying to show is there is something else. There is something way outside of the box that is no box, and that's the spiritual viewpoint. You know, that we're more than just this material body. There is something more, no matter how scientific we are. And believe me, I took physics, and I studied physics, and just to see, oh well, we're limited by the human eye from this to this, and we're limited by the touch, and we can only hear certain sounds. Dogs can hear more sounds than we can. And
It's true.
This body in itself is a limitation. So there's something more.
Well, I know I'm seeing you later this afternoon, and I'm thinking for our tour that perhaps we open up your room because they're going to start with a bus here. So it might be nice to go into the annex of TD Glass. How about that? We'll talk more this afternoon about it, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to show the tour what you have going on in there. So, so if you haven't yet signed up for the tour, you can go on our website and sign up, or you can call. We also, as Trish said, we are offering the class on Friday. I believe we have only 3 slots left for that. So if you're interested, call and get your time slot put together on that. I also, because you have mentioned the collaboration with Godfrey Hellman, and I will encourage anyone to look up Godfrey Hellman and to see his work, and then to come to Imagine Museum and see the collaboration that he has done with Trish. I think that you will find everything that Trish is saying that is reflected in that collaboration. And since Gottfried will be coming to town, we will be having an artist reception for him on Saturday, April 2nd from 6:30 to 8:30. And I believe that's on our website, or soon to be, where you can purchase your tickets for that. So as we are moving forward, and I just have to ask you about those Corvettes. I still haven't gotten a good answer on that. I know people will see the many projects that you have going. And I think that they'll be so impressed by just the volume, the output, and also the positivity that once that you actually view the work in the studio, just how uplifting what this amazing woman is doing at TD Glass. And but then I know that there are other projects. I know you have other projects. And the biggest one I can see maybe not resolved yet, or on its way to being resolved, are the cars. And I know you did, I remember you talking about it a little bit, but what are you thinking about those?
Well, I have my 5 boys who are huge car enthusiasts. So they've talked me into getting an Audi R8 V10 GT and a McLaren 720 and all. And I think I'm going to save those cars, and I'm eventually going to turn those into something as well, artistic. But I just had the idea to, hey, let's do an American car. So let's
Yeah.
do the Corvette.
Yeah.
And I was able to get 3 Corvettes, and we're working on that. Sky is helping me duplicate pieces off of the car into
Yeah.
glass. And do you want to talk about that at
Yeah,
all?
we've
The
done
tail
some
lights?
tail lights, and we did some custom lights that go under the front bumper so far. It's a lot to restore one of those cars, so just doing the body work has taken a long time, but it's going to be really fun when it all gets painted some kind of reflective paint with beautiful flames or flowers, or we have several different ones going, but it's going to be super beautiful.
One's going to be red, a really phenomenal color red.
Flames.
And we've got the red interior picked out, which is sparkly. It's going to be, it'll be stunning. And we have the Grand Prix here. So hopefully by the next year, by the Grand Prix, we'll have those. Hopefully,
at least
fingers
one will
crossed.
be down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
That's the goal.
So
Well,
we're going to do one
another-
with flames, one with flowers, and one with kind of universe, galaxies, things like that.
Okay, yeah.
So, and we may do more. as
And,
we get
and we
into
might
it.
have one with waves and that looks kind of blue.
It's
We'll
like
see.
the mannequins. I was going to do one mannequin, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do shells and pink neon, and I thought, oh, I'll do a glass blue mannequin, and then I'll do a glass surfboard, and then I'll do a mannequin with dollars, and then I'll do one with pennies. Now I'm doing one with blue glass. Oh, I've got so many ideas.
I was going to mention the mannequins that were put in this year into the museum. And again, that idea was inspired. I understand the one to the many, but why mannequins? Why did you pick the mannequins as a form?
Well, there was a definite purpose for that, because like one of my mannequins is blue and one is painted green and one is painted copper. And, we think of prejudice here on planet Earth amongst Homo sapiens. Well, I don't like that person because they're a different color than me. And I don't like that person because, they have a different viewpoint than me. I mean, let's get along. We should be able to really think way differently. I mean, here's a blue person, here's a green person, here's a person that doesn't even look like a person. So let's get along. It's a message of, can you enjoy the beauty of this blue person? Yeah, you can. So
I think those, the surfaces that she has chosen also are recognizable to everyone. So you don't have to be a certain person to have that response that she's looking for. Everyone knows what a penny looks like, or a dollar bill, or a blue stone. Everyone's seen that. So now you see it collectively as an armor. It's really,
Well, it is. There is a armor quality to it, but there's also, they're very approachable.
that's what I mean. I think the viewer can really tangibly understand them.
Yes, yeah, I think so also. And I think they're beginning also to be quite popular in the museum. Just because they are as unique, when you approach it, they are very, very unique. So
I want to mention one more thing, because I do have that one up in the space-oriented area.
Yes,
I
right.
worked for about over a year making little astronauts, and with the 3D printer, and we ended up with Casey's help gluing all those astronauts all over the top, and then she has computer parts on the bottom, and then right next to her I have a collaboration with Tim Tate, who is just a wonderful, wonderful, very nice man. And I have one of the infinity mirrors with all the astronauts in it right next to her. So I encourage you to come see that.
Yes. Well, and that whole experience, which is a good way for me to just say that this week is spring break week. And so that every day we have the Journey of the Imagination tour, which that piece is part of, as well as the augmented reality that we have that goes with those couple of galleries. And we also have the mystery creatures, the scavenger hunt. So we're offering those every day. So if it's spring break and you want a place to go and to have some interest as you walk through the museum and different ways that you can engage, I encourage you to take part in that this week, just that it is something special. And we know that the students are out. Really, I think they tried to get this week to cover most of the schools. So really from the little itty bitties all the way through the college students. So it's a big time here for us in St. Pete and Clearwater, since so many people are coming back to visit the area and to be here for spring break. So I'll just say it, there was one day of bad weather this weekend, but it was like terrific for the museum. So if you need a place to go, if the beach isn't going to work for you over spring break, definitely Imagine Museum is a place to go.
And for anybody who hasn't seen the augmented reality, that's a must see. I did Bertila, of course, is famous for his ships. I think he sold one of his ships for $1 million to a museum, but I got him to turn it into a rocket ship, and it through the augmented reality, it has all the armature of a rocket taking off, and then all the exhaust and fumes, and the piece seems to go through the ceiling. If you hold up the iPad and use the augmented reality, it is a fascinating, artistic, individual experience.
So I think that, Trish, it's wonderful that you get to share with the audience of the museum, our friends, our members, about what it is and the art that you do. They do come here, and you know that your installations are quite impressive. And people do always wonder, you know, that sometimes they see you in the museum, but sometimes, you know, you're just a person they might read about and come into contact with via the installations in the museum. So I'm going to, at this point, if there's anyone that has any questions for either Trish or Sky, or questions about the tour that we'll be offering, if you want to unmute yourself and let us know somehow, or just you can just come in and talk. But if there are any questions, please feel free. So we'll just see if anybody has any questions, because then we'll go on to the last particular segment. Well, we're covering an awful lot. So when people come to tour, what are some TD Glass? So what will be some of the things that they will see when they come to the studio?
Okay, I think we've sort of laid it out. So they're going to see the fabrication area where we make things mostly, and a gallery area where things are finished and set up in a beautiful way. So that area is going to be able to, people will be able to see all the techniques that we employ here. On the fabrication side, I'll show them the metal has its own area, the kiln shop has its own area, polishing has its own area, and wood shop obviously has also its own studio. So when you walk through, you'll see the different materials and techniques, you know, basically quarantined to their own little places.
And
the wood block. And the wood block.
Yes.
And Sky is an amazing artist on her own. And I'd like to say that one of her pieces will be in the Florida Artists. I don't know if you mentioned that, but the Florida Artists show.
In Transformation.
Yeah.
The Florida in Transformation. We've made our selections, and
Oh, good. I didn't hear yet.
no, you haven't. They're being notified today.
I'm hearing now.
So Arlene is working on all that communication. So, and that show actually opens Saturday, April 30th from 6:30 to 8:30. So that's something else to think of. That will be a lovely party. That will be the Florida down home party where we'll have the steel drums, and we're going to make it just really a time where the Glass Coast gets celebrated in Florida. So put that on your calendar. That's April 30th. But we've got so much coming up before then too. So, and then we just want to remind people, this is the spring break. week. And then on Thursday, March 31st, from 2 to 4 will be the tour. I will say myself, coming to the studio or going over to TD, you will see such an array of various techniques and ideas and concepts out of this one woman's mind, Ms. Trish Duggan. I will have to say, knowing you over the last 5 years and seeing your production, it's quite otherworldly. I think that's a good one. It's so huge, and it's so much who you are and how you described yourself today. And I really, I think anyone on the tour is really going to find even more insight, because if you think you've seen everything that Trish has created, not so. She has so much, and once you go to the studio, you'll just be amazed at her output. As she said, her kids call her what do they call you?
Hyperproductive.
Hyperproductive. My sense is that I first heard Trish referring to going 1,000 miles an hour. And in my mind, up until the point I had met Trish, that I thought 150 miles an hour was like pretty good to go. But not until I met her did I realize, that everybody has the capacity to lean in even a little bit more to make things happen. And if you all have any final comments that you want to make, we're getting to the hour.
I've got 2 questions.
Okay, great.
First,
Kurt.
from a Facebook user, is where they can find out more information on the class. And then the second question from Bobby in chat asks, what is the work on the wall behind you?
Okay, great. So they can find more information about the class on our website, and they can also register for the class. So there will only be a couple of people. We only have a couple of spots left on that, but if we have a larger interest, maybe we can get a second date, Sky. That's going to be up to you and Trish to determine that.
Definitely.
And what was the other question, Kurt?
What's behind you?
Oh,
Steel.
thought we talked about it. Yes. What is behind me is the collaboration between Swedish artist Bertil Wallin and Trish Duggan. It's a portion of the human rights wall that we are currently installing today. It is breathtaking. You're seeing such a small element of it today. It is something once that you must see it in person. The sensitivity, the humanity, the true vulnerability of who we are as humans and our aspirations, I think, is all just contained in this piece. So I encourage anyone to come by the museum to see it. Any other questions?
We've got one from Emily in chat. Trish mentioned an influencer in St. Pete. Chuck, what is his last name?
Baux Books. And he has Sigma Studios here in St. Pete. And by the way, here's one person that's been able to keep up with me. I say speed of particle flow equals power. And one of my favorite books when I was a kid was the Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. And she has someplace in that book, you've got to run just to keep up. So I got that idea. If we want to get this planet in any kind of good shape, we have to do a lot of work to inspire, uplift, and educate people.
I think so, Trish. I think you're such an inspiration, and we're so fortunate in St. Pete to have you here and have you believe in the artists that work primarily with this glass materials. So, I think that you elevate our area here on the Gulf Coast, and I know you do around the world. So any last final comments or questions that you might have?
Jane, I'd like to say thank you very much for being such an inspirational leader for Imagine Museum and really bringing us to the forefront. And I have a phenomenal staff. Sky, Casey Brewster, my TD studio would be nothing without her total fabulous organization and input. And just my whole crew here and the whole group of employees at the museum, you know, they're so focused on helping uplift, inspire, and educate. So I appreciate all my friends, all the artists that are interested in glass. I'm trying to make the other American glass artists become famous. You know, it is an ultra contemporary art form now. It's no longer a craft.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we are. We are contemporary glass art. I want to thank you both for being with us today. Remember, the tour is Thursday, March 31st from 2 to 4. You just have to go online and get your tickets to go on that. Then we'll send you all the detail of what you need to know about that day, as well as the class on Friday. And if you're interested in the Blue Madonna exhibit and the artist that collaborated with Trish, Godfrey Hohen, we'll have a reception for him April 2nd from 6:30 to 8:30. It's been a real pleasure to be with you all today. You being our first encounter here on the Glass Coast. It couldn't have been better. Trish, as I said, you are inspiration to many. Sky, we work daily on making these things happen, and we really couldn't have a better boss. How about that? Love it, love it. So I think it's time to say goodbye, and I'll see you all over here this afternoon, and those who have joined us today, thank you so much, and we'll see you the next time.
Thank
So
you.
long.